What's up guys, Moose here, and in this video I'm going to make a game, but ChatGPT tells me what to do. There's one rule that I must follow. Let ChatGPT come up with all the ideas. And after asking ChatGPT for a game idea, this is what it came up with. 1 minute maze. I have 48 hours to create a game that has a minimalist art style, simple black and white lines and shapes. It's good that it's already catering to my inabilities. And the character has one button input that rotates the player 90 degrees, where you have to navigate through puzzle mazes within 1 minute, consisting of obstacles, narrow passages, dead ends, and even moving walls. Perfect! So we'll just create a project called 1 Minute Maze like ChatGPT told us, but already we have our first problem. Chat never told us whether it was supposed to be 2D or 3D. I think you see where this is going. So we'll just have to go back and ask it real quick. As expected, Chat told us to make it 2D, but here's where you may see a problem. Chat is too nice. It gives us some leniency when it comes to choices. So if it recommends something, that's what I'll do. But if it gives me a choice, I will try to do whatever makes the most sense with the context I have. Like in this case, it recommends being 2D. Already we're off to a great start. Unity has decided a 6-minute startup time was a great idea. Speaking of which, this is the time that I asked ChatGPT for the idea, 2:21. So from 48 hours from then, the project has to be finished. And already we are back to asking our overlord what's next. Black background or white background? Never a straight answer when working with AI, but with the context it has given me, I think the black background is what it's trying to imply. So that's what I'll do. And we'll just create the player, after asking ChatGPT what it should look like, of course. A square, a circle, a triangle, and a stick man walk into a bar. And the triangle walks out, because ChatGPT's advice is really good, and you'll be able to tell really well where you're going. I think the triangle will also fit really well into the style that ChatGPT is making. And here's the professional level triangle I created. So we'll just import that, and kablam! We have our player. Well, sort of. Now we have to make it move and respond to input. So we create our first script. I always like fresh projects. Everything is so clean. And a couple lines of code later, it's not so clean. But we have our player moving. Perfect. Now for the single input. And a couple lines of code later, we have our player rotating. Perfect. To make it more like the maze portion of the game, the chat requested, we added some walls to run into. And to further complete the maze mechanic, when you collide with this at the end of the maze, you are done. And it is a 1 minute maze after all, so we also added a timer to the top left. And for now, made the player stop when time runs out. So the game is looking good, but we are going to need direction. So let's ask chat what the first maze should look like, and how many mazes it wants. It wants a very simple first maze that introduces the movement and mechanics to the player, and has told me that I should probably make 10 to 15 mazes, where the key is gradual progression. That sounds great and dandy, but before I can start creating, we need to get what the model should look like. So I asked chat what the entrance and the exit should consist of. So for the entrance, it asked for a door, so I gave it a door. For the signaling and the pathing, I think that it is good, as I have the player start there. And for the exit, it asked for a flag, key, or star, so I made a flag with some stars. And we'll add a particle effect to it as well, as chat wanted an animation with it. And jumping back to the original idea, it wanted a moving wall as well. Thus, we have movement. And so, following chat's idea on the first level, I've created a very simple first maze to get the player familiar with said controls, and the particle effect as well, for the end goal. Thus, onto the second level, asking chat, of course, what it should look like. So, for the second level, chat wants me to make bigger mazes with multiple paths, obstacles, and unlockable paths, while still making progression feel natural and making sure the scale of the game does not increase too rapidly. So I'll probably implement these things in separate levels. And this is what I came up with for level 2. Adding a dead end, albeit not a complicated one, but it further introduces the concepts of the game, and is a progression of maze building. And I also made the camera follow the player. I believe that chat wanted the game to be more explorative, and it will open up the game to more world building opportunities, to actually make the 1 minute time limit effective without making ridiculously hard short levels. For level 3, Following Chat's idea of slowly implementing key game mechanics, I've introduced the player to moving platform, as well as a choice of which way to go. Still extremely simple, but still progression, as later levels will probably ramp up quite a bit faster. It's been about 7 hours since the start of the challenge, and this is where I'm going to call it a day. It's now the start of day 2, and I'm going back to what Chat told me to implement. It said that I should implement an unlockable path, so asking what the trigger should look like is a good start. It told me to make a bright color like yellow, but that contradicts the first idea of black and white, so I think we'll ignore that. However, it also wants a symbol, illumination, animation, and audio with it. The first, audio cue. It has told me to implement a sound for the trigger. It'd be kind of funny if this was the only audio cue in the entire game, but that's up to Chat to decide. And thus, it has been implemented. A lever that when you cross it, opens up a new path. Then, I added this particle effect of keys floating up from the lever to satisfy Chat's idea of illumination and animated elements, marking the first animation in the game so far, a lever moving from right to left, as well as adding a simple noise as an audio cue. Then, for our next level, we utilize the moving corridors to make a level that satisfies Chat's idea of time-based skill requirements. We'll still have to get more explorative levels later on. Fast forwarding a bit, I've finished the first 5 levels, and I need more direction. So back to Chat. It is still heavily focused on level progression, which is good, but it also has mentioned that I need to implement a new mechanic of portals, and potentially having a power-up to collect as well. Bam! A teleporter. Works quite well, but we still need to know what it looks like. Chat tells me to make a circular device that has a modern design with symbolic glyphs as well as particle streams, and our next audio cue, so we'll at least have 2. So, back to Paint, and we create this little device. I put some glyphs over it, as if some sort of language or writing, as well as some particle effect being more glyphs. And with that marks halfway into the challenge, almost exactly 24 hours. But I still have a lot of level design to do, as Chat wants 10 to 15 levels. And now for the power-up. I went with a speed power-up because Chat emphasized time-based elements, asking what it should look like, of course. So I've got this, a lightning bolt with a trail of motion blur after it is collected. And now that I've got most of the mechanics down, it is time for more level design. After a bunch of level design, it marks the end of day 2, about 36 hours into the challenge. So, the start of day 3 here. I got started a little late today, so we have 4 hours until 2 o'clock, and the game must be finished. I think it is probably going to be a little bit self-explanatory, but I technically never asked what happens when you run into a wall or when time runs out. Do you just straight up lose, or does the maze reset, or what? And as sort of expected, it wants the maze to reset on death and time run out, as well as have a retry button and an animation when hitting a wall. It also told me to implement 2 more auditory cues for both the walls and the timeout. So, I added this explosion effect to when you hit the walls, as well as the sound effect, and a sound effect for when the time is ticking down, just for the last 10 seconds of the timer though. And with that, I have 10 levels, so I quickly added 2 more to give me 12, right between the 10 and 15 that Chat advised. And after finishing the levels, I needed to know what happens when you actually beat all the mazes. Chat wants me to make a victory screen, as well as a high score. Sadly, I do not have time to implement another game mode or bonus content, but I can do the rest. So I added a high score system to the game. It will keep track of the highest level that you have completed, as well as the time it took you to complete all the levels up to that point. So if you advance to a new level, that is automatically a high score. But if you've already got to that level before, then it checks if your time is better than your previous score. So right here, I beat level 1 in 4.3 seconds. If I then do level 1 faster than that, or beat level 2, then that becomes my new high score. And as things finish up, let's ask Chat if it wants me to make anything else for the game. So, It wants me to make some user interface, some menus and things like that, as well as finally some sound and music. I was worried it might just be a couple sounds here and there as you play. But first, to implement the menu. It wants me to make sure that the UI is user-friendly, and right now, I have no menu at all so far. And, as it didn't actually mention a menu screen, I'll just implement the menu straight into the game level. And this is the time. Literally only an hour left to finish everything up. This is the perfect time to accidentally add bugs and stuff. It says to playtest thoroughly, and I full-heartedly agree, but not with so little time. And this is what the menu looks like. A simple menu, but displays all you need for a good UI experience. And then I added some music and sounds to help communicate to the player what is going on, as the chat advised, like when you complete a level. With almost no time to spare, a bug has been discovered. I'm not keeping track of the time correctly when restarting the level, as you should be punished for running out of time. Right here it says I completed the level in 2.6 seconds, when it should have said 7.6. Luckily, just a couple lines of code later, and it seems to be working correctly. So after a few audio adjustments and little tweaks, this is the time, just a minute before the deadline. But I think it should all be complete. So, if you want to play the game, there's a link in the description. And if you would like me to do another challenge, leave your idea in the comments. Thanks for watching. Moose, out.